Okay guys, welcome back. And today is the day we're going to be removing the gearbox from this Porsche 997 engine. Many of you guys know this is a Tiptronic engine. I know many of you have been waiting to see this. So I'm going to be showing you how you remove the gearbox. Now, not everybody is going to have the tools I have. Not everybody's going to have the space I have to be able to do this. If you're working in a tiny garage or working on a floor and you don't have all the equipment like I do, hydraulic table, engine crane, this and that, you're going to find this a lot more difficult to remove this gearbox than it would be having all this. And therefore I recommend not to do this if you've got a Tiptronic on the floor dropping this engine, because you will not be able to remove this gearbox because you need the engine crane to be able to do a lot of the stuff which I'll go over on this video in a sec. So firstly, we're going to be removing these drive plate bolts. Now, to remove them, you just got to turn over the crank pulley, which is using a 24mm socket. We're just going to turn the crank pulley over so we can line these up with the hole so we can take them bolts out. Now, these drive plate bolts cannot be reused, so it's best case to make sure you order new ones when you put this engine back together. So what we're going to go ahead and do is just turn it over so we can get it into position. So you can see there, I brung it up to the position we need it, which is right there. Now I'm going to get a T40 and we're going to remove them. Now I can see the Allen key heads, as many of you guys can see, but I choose not to use an Allen key. I choose to use a Torx 40, as many of you guys know, on the Allen keys, just to be safe. So as you can see, I'm going to be using a T40 and we're just going to go in here and just crack them loose. There's one loose. Put that one in, make sure they're seated properly, and there you go. Just remove them just like that. Now these won't be hard or seized because, as many of you guys know, they sit into the gearbox, so it's very hard for them to seize in that location. So we'll just take them out and I'll show you what they look like. So they look like this. They're not big at all. And you really can't get this mixed up or to put them back, because they're very easy to put back in as well. Because providing you line up the torque converter with a drive plate, they'll just slide in and screw straight in. So that's two of them out. Now we'll rotate the engine again to get to the rest of them. So now we've rotated the engine. What we'll do is get to the next two. We'll just take these two out now. Just like that. And obviously you want to be careful you don't strip them. Just going to line it up a bit more to here. What we'll do is just remove that one. If you really wanted to, you could turn it and bring the other one up as well to the top if you feel uncomfortable doing that one here. But you've got to remember, even if it does drop into the gearbox, it doesn't matter at this point because you're going to be removing the gearbox anyway, so you can get them out then. It's when you're putting them back, you don't want to end up dropping them. So you can see there, I'm just going to bring these up because of the compression stroke. It's very hard, very tight to turn it over. I'm just going to release that one. Go. Now they're out. Just take these ones out as well. There's only 6 of them. Then I'll take you around to the gearbox and show you how to remove that. So now all 6 of them are out. We're going to put them on the side, even though we're going to have to order new ones because, like I say, these cannot be reused. So put them on the side. And what we'll do is take you around the gearbox so you can see how I've got it all set up ready to remove it. Okay guys, so the first thing you need to do with these automatic transmissions is make sure to lock the torque converter. So obviously when you pull the transmission backwards, the torque converter does not stay in with a drive plate. To do that, you've got to use the timing tool, which actually locks it at tap dead center. And what you do is you slot it in this hole right here and you find the torque converter hole. There's holes on top of the torque converter and you just slide this right in, and what that does, that locks the torque converter back into the bell housing, so when you pull the gearbox away, it will lock the torque converter back into the gearbox so it doesn't stay in with the drive plate. Next thing you need to do on these transmissions is you need to have an engine crane, and the reason for that is because you need to lift this gearbox up to be able to get to all these Torx 45 bolts that are at the back of the bell housing down here. Now obviously I've already removed them because I removed them, as many of you guys saw, when the engine was actually in the car. Now, if you don't do that, You will then have to do that when the car is down either on a hydraulic table or on the floor. That is why I removed them and unloosened them just beforehand. You need to be able to do that. If you don't, you'll have to adapt to the transmission like this, be able to lift it up with the engine crane, to lift it up at some height, to crack them all loose while the engine's halfway up in the air, and unloosen all the bolts all underneath the bell housing, which is not so easy to do, especially to crack them all loose. So make sure you do that while they're on the car. Now, if you can see here, we've only got 4 left to release, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Do not take these top ones out first, because these are holding the transmission to the adapter plate. If you take them out and then you take out the bottom ones, all that's going to happen is the transmission is just going to fall backwards, especially if you've got the engine crane with it jacked up in the air. You do not want that. So keep these 4 in here ready to take out last for that reason, and make sure you've got this locking pin in the torque converter, so the torque converter will come out with the transmission. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go and release these Torx 45 bolts. As you can see, it's one released, it's another released, another released, and then we've got the last one at the back here. There's 4 here and 4 underneath. And like I said, to do them back up, it's the same thing. When you put the transmission back into the adapter plate, when you want to put it all back together, you will have to lift the transmission to put them bolts in, do it all up, but you don't need to do them as tight as the factory do them. And then put the top ones in. You'll have no choice, you have to do the bottom ones first. So the bottom ones pull in the bell housing to the adapter plate itself. Do remember that, do not do the top ones first, because what will happen is it won't line up correctly. Now, once we've removed these, this gearbox is going to come away from the adapter plate. So we've only got this last one to come out. Then what I've got to do is I've got to separate the transmission from the adapter plate, which isn't very hard. Just give it a few whacks and it will come off, because it sits on 2 alignment dials, which are built on to the actual adapter plate itself. So we'll just take these bolts out, and now the gearbox is going to detach. Now, as I said, they are all T45 bolts. Now what you're going to go ahead and see is, as I lift the engine, the gearbox should come away from the engine itself. So I'm just going to lift it all up, and then we'll bang it with a pry bar and a hammer, and then you should see the gearbox, the engine will drop down and the gearbox will detach from here. So we're just going to use the pry bar. And just like that, guys, you can see transmission is now coming away. We're just taking it off the alignment dowels. Like I said, there's 2 of them. So what we're going to do is we're just going to lift up the engine crane a bit to help it come out. Just like that. And you can see it all coming away. Trying to get it away from here. Just working it both sides to release it. And now it's free and released. So now we'll just lift it up. Just like that. So we can pull it away from the engine. So guys, as the transmission is off, as I told you, it really isn't hard to remove the transmissions from these. Now we're going to go ahead and remove the drive plate. All these bolts right here are, I believe, T50 or T55. Again, they cannot be reused. These are torqued to yield, so you will need to buy new bolts of these as well once they've come off. So we are going to go ahead and remove them. We've got to remove this adapter plate as well. I believe these are, I think they're 18s, or I might be wrong, they might be actually 16s. Then you've got to use the Torx, and there's nuts on the back of the adapter plate that you have to release as well, that are in the back here. But you've got to get this drive plate off first to be able to access them. So guys, these are T55s. And you can see there, we're just going to take them off. Now we're just undo them by hand. And I'll show you to take the drive plate off completely. And you can also see that alignment pin right down here. That's where you can align the gearbox to mount it. Again, they're all the bolts. They're non-reusable, do remember that. They are torqued to yield. You can see where they've been torqued up there and stretched out. Do not reuse these. To get the drive plate off, you just want to pop this off. So you will have to use a bit of force. Just like that, it was off now, off this guide pin. So you can see the guide pin there, and that's where all of this sits on, which aligns it all up. See the rear main seal now as well. So you can see the rear main seal. You can also see the IMS, and it's been leaking somewhere down there. I don't know if it's the rear main seal. It looks like it's the rear main seal that's been leaking. So that's leaked before. And this case may have been opened before, because this has all got black Loctite sealer. So this may have already been accessed before, and it's got grease here. I ain't 100% sure. We'll know when we get it opened, but it might have been accessed already. Maybe for an IMS failure, who knows? Let's get this adapter plate off anyway. So we'll just take out this bolt here. So we'll just knock that one out, just like that. So these are all 16 mils. And we're gonna use these bolts to hook up the engine to the engine stand. Just one on the top here. Another one down here. And then we've just got that one over here. Just that one ain't budging. We'll just use the breaker bar to release it. Engine's very light now, so it's just wobbling everywhere. Now that one's out. Now we'll go behind, because behind on this one, there is a nut that connects onto the gearbox, which you have to remove. Not hard at all. To release it, the nut is quite loose. So you should be able to turn the nut out at the same time as turning this bolt out. And I'll show you the nut in a minute. It goes behind. So you can see here, that's the nut and that's the bolt. That one goes on this side and the other one goes on the other side. Got one more 15 here, which is now released. So as you can see, guys, there's 6 16mm bolts that hold this adapter plate on, along with 2 T50 bolts as well, one with a nut, one without. And that's the adapter plate now off as well. So you can see, guys, all that coolant corrosion down here as well. That means it's been leaking into the gearbox area from the oil cooler, which really isn't good. You can see it all, look. All the corrosion, look at all that. That's been leaking straight into the gearbox area. Coolant getting in here from all up here from the oil cooler. And I did say to you it's been leaking, and it had been, it's going down into the gearbox here. So that could be what this leak is down here, or maybe it could be something else. I'm not sure, but regardless, all this is gonna be cleaned out anyway. It's gonna be all clean and everything else, and you can see the other case bolts all here. There's 2 of them there, IMS case, which we'll get off some other time. But as you can see, guys, that's the transmission now away from this engine. And if you can see, this engine is very, very light now as well. Like, it's easily movable. 2 people could easily pick it up and move it. Obviously, I might end up doing that. Might have to get someone to help me just lift the engine up and I pull it onto the engine stand. A lot easier. I'm gonna bolt the piece up to it now. So it's just ready to go onto the engine stand so we can start stripping it. But there you go, guys. That's how easy it is to actually remove the gearbox from these 997 engines. And everyone seems to say, oh, the Tiptronics are this or that, and you know, nobody ever wants to change it. Or everyone's like, don't get a Tiptronic, why would you do that? But to be honest, as you guys just seen, the Tiptronic really isn't that bad. If you know what you're doing, you've got the right tools. It's a very, very simple job. The only people that seem to piss and moan about it and complain are the people that don't have their own garage, obviously their own lift and all the right equipment to remove it. Because it's very, very easy. There's no problem with taking it out with the engine. I could remove mine now very, very easily, just like I did this. I've removed it already twice. So, you know, I could easily do it literally 5 minutes. I don't know what people moan about with these gearboxes. They're excellent gearboxes and they're not hard at all to remove, very, very simple. But as you see, guys, that's all stripped down. And like I say, I'll see you on the next video when we have this mounted up to the engine stand, ready to strip all the heads down and strip it down to its bare blocks. Thank you very much for watching, guys. BMW Dr. Dean here, and goodbye.